There are moments in life where everything looks fine on the outside, but inside something feels off. You can't focus, your sleep is restless, you feel like you're moving but going nowhere. This is not random, it's a signal. In the teachings of the temple we say, before the door closes, heaven always sends warnings. But they're not loud, they're quiet, subtle, easy to miss unless you're awake. And what I will share with you in this video is not based on belief or theory, it's based on direct experience. From years of training, from watching students transform or collapse, depending on how they responded to the signs. Most people don't notice the shift. They only react after the damage is done, when the door is already closed, a relationship breaks, a calling is lost, the health collapses. But there are always signs before that moment. Always. Today, I will show you 5 of those warnings. Not common advice, but deeper, older truths drawn from Shaolin discipline, internal martial arts, and ancient mindfulness practices. These are the early cracks in the wall. If you notice them, you still have time. Each warning is an invitation, not to panic, but to return to the center, to reclaim clarity, to act while you still can. Stay with me until the end. Because these lessons are not just for monks, they are for anyone who wants to master the self before life forces them to. This is Shaolin Soulfire, a space for stillness, wisdom, and inner power. Subscribe now so that you don't miss the next lesson. And so you remember, the path is always open until the moment you choose to stop walking it. There's a moment in every path when silence becomes dangerous. Not the kind of silence that calms the mind, but the silence you keep around your own truth. I've seen students train hard. They show up early. They move with discipline. On the surface, everything looks strong. But strength without honesty is just armor. And armor, if never removed, becomes a prison. You can't heal what you pretend isn't broken. As I often remind them, do not lie to yourself. Feeling is born in the mind. If your mind says, I'm fine, but your body tenses, your breath is shallow, your sleep disturbed, that's not fine. That's a storm disguised as stillness. There was a disciple once, skilled in forms, precise in meditation, but his energy was off. He was polite, composed, yet his eyes never settled. When I asked him to speak from the heart, his voice trembled. He had been holding grief for years, telling himself it was gone, that it no longer mattered. But the body remembers, the breath remembers. In Shaolin practice, we don't just train the limbs, we train the truth. Each movement, each inhale must be honest. If anger is there, you face it. If sadness lingers, you welcome it. This isn't weakness, it's the beginning of real strength. Because here's the danger. If you keep convincing yourself you're okay when you're not, life will find a way to force you to look. A sudden breakdown, a decision made in confusion, a door that shuts and you don't even know why. So ask yourself now, not tomorrow, not when it's too late, where am I pretending? And what pain have I buried so deep that I've mistaken silence for peace? This is not judgment, it's invitation to stop performing, to start seeing. Some obstacles do not shout, they drift in quietly like fog at dawn. You don't notice them at first, but they begin to change the way you walk, the way you see, the way you act. The Shaolin path teaches us that there are 5 hindrances to inner mastery. Not enemies, but forces within the mind that cloud the mirror of awareness. The first is desire, not the healthy pull toward life, but the craving that never ends, always reaching, never resting. Then comes aversion, the resistance to discomfort, the habit of turning away from pain, from challenge, from anything that doesn't feel easy. Third is lethargy, a heavy mind. You wake up tired, not because the body is weak, but because the spirit is unfocused. The fourth is restlessness, a flickering flame of thought that refuses to still. You sit, but the mind runs. You try to listen, but 100 inner voices interrupt. And the last is doubt, the quietest, but most dangerous. Not curiosity, but the kind of doubt that erodes self-trust, that whispers, why even try? These 5 are not punished, they are studied, understood, transformed, because they aren't just obstacles to peace, they are barriers to right action. When they linger, your intent gets tangled, your timing slips, you miss the door when it opens, or worse, you walk through the wrong one. Discipline is how we clear the fog, not through force but through attention, through breath, through watching the mind without running from it. Mastery doesn't mean never falling into hindrance, it means learning how to return again and again until clarity becomes the natural state. This is the quiet work, the real work, the one no one sees, but everyone feels when it's done. There's a misunderstanding people carry about discipline. They think it's about control, forcing the self into shape, cutting off pleasure, becoming a machine. But true discipline, the kind passed down in Shaolin tradition, is not rigidity, it's clarity. When the mind is clear, the choice is simple, not easy. Simple. You sit because the body needs stillness. You move because the spirit needs circulation. You breathe with awareness because breath is the bridge between chaos and peace. Avoiding practice doesn't always look like laziness. Sometimes it hides behind busyness. I'll sit later. I've trained enough. It's just one day. But one day turns to 3. The silence returns, not the peaceful kind, the heavy kind. Every day you avoid training, something slips. Not your worth, but your connection. You lose touch with the rhythm of your own life, with the pulse of the moment. There was once a novice who practiced with fire, but after a while, his form became perfect and his presence vanished. He could strike with precision, but his breath was hollow. His eyes wandered. His thoughts raced even in stillness. The master saw this not as failure, but as forgetting. He had forgotten that training is not a performance, it's remembrance, a return. Discipline, when rightly held, isn't punishment, it's a gift, a thread tying you to yourself, even when the world pulls you in every direction. Without it, the door to transformation stays closed, not because it is locked, but because we stop walking toward it. Clarity comes not from wishing for peace, but from showing up when it's hardest. That's when the body learns truth. That's when the mind stops pretending. That's when the real shift begins. There's a certain kind of silence that isn't peace. It's escape. A smile that hides sorrow. A mantra whispered not to awaken but to avoid. In the path of inner mastery, pain is not the enemy. It's the teacher, the gatekeeper, the fire you walk through to become real. But many bypass it. Not with alcohol or distraction, but with polished words. Everything happens for a reason. Just be positive. Let it go. These phrases can soothe in the moment, but if used too soon, they cover wounds that still bleed underneath. There was once a seeker who meditated for hours each day, eyes closed, breath slow, posture perfect. Yet when his partner left him, he smiled and said, "It's part of the universe's plan." But his hands trembled, his heart was tight, his dreams grew dark. He had skipped the storm and tried to walk into the light too quickly. In doing so, he carried the storm with him. True healing is not bypassing pain, it's entering it, sitting with it, asking what it wants to show. It doesn't mean drowning in suffering, it means not pretending it's gone when it hasn't even been named. Shaolin teachings are clear. The body stores memory, the breath reveals emotion. The still mind does not push anything away. The one who avoids pain also avoids growth, because the breakthrough is buried beneath the discomfort. There's no shame in not being okay. The shame is in abandoning yourself when you're not. Real mastery is quiet. It doesn't rush to gratitude. It doesn't rush anywhere. It breathes through the ache. It learns its language, and in time, it watches the pain dissolve, not because it was avoided, but because it was honored. Life has a way of repeating itself when lessons go unlearned. The names change, the places shift, but the pain feels familiar, almost scripted. This is what spiritual traditions call a karmic loop. It's not punishment, it's pattern. A message written into experience, asking, "Are you awake yet?" A man may leave one broken relationship only to fall into another just like it. A woman may change careers, cities, routines, yet the same deep dissatisfaction follows. The surface keeps moving, but the root remains untouched. Shaolin wisdom teaches, when the same challenge returns, it is no longer about the situation, it is about your readiness. Life will not graduate you until the inner lesson is understood. And what is that lesson? Often it's one of courage, to speak truth when it's easier to stay silent, to walk away when something steals your spirit, to stop blaming others and begin the harder work of self-inquiry. Discipline, in this sense, is not only physical, it is spiritual responsibility, the willingness to pause and ask, what in me keeps drawing this in? What wound still writes this story? There was once a student who failed every test of patience. No matter how many teachers he followed, he kept finding himself in conflict. One day a master told him, "You are not meeting new people, you are meeting your own unhealed mind again and again." That was the day the loop broke. When awareness deepens, the pattern weakens. When you stop running, the cycle stops chasing. New doors do not open just because you're tired of the old ones. They open when the lesson is fully embodied. That is the price of the next level. That is how transformation honors itself. Growth looks inward, but it doesn't happen in isolation. Even in the silence of the temple, no one walks the path alone. In the life of a Shaolin disciple, community is not just companionship. It's mirror and soil. It reflects who you are. It challenges your ego. It nurtures your strengths. Without it, the path becomes uneven. There's a temptation, especially after pain, to retreat, to protect the heart by closing the gates. I'll walk this road by myself. It's safer that way. But isolation doesn't make you strong. It makes your shadows louder. The monks train together for a reason. One falls, the other lifts. One doubts, the other steadies. Even in deep solitude, they remain rooted in something larger than themselves. When you cut ties, disappear, avoid connection, you may feel free, but it's the kind of freedom that drains. No reflection, no reminder, no rhythm, just drifting. There was once a practitioner who excelled alone. He meditated for hours, fasted for days, perfected every form, but when he returned to the group, he couldn't listen. He dismissed feedback. He resisted correction. Without the presence of others, he had become unbalanced, precise but cold, strong but rigid. The path had narrowed, and he didn't even notice. Spiritual strength is tested in relationship. Patience, humility, empathy, these don't grow in a cave. They grow when you're seen, when you're challenged, when your rough edges meet another soul. The door to inner mastery doesn't open just for the disciplined. It opens for those who are willing to stay connected. Because sometimes the lesson is not to endure alone. Sometimes it's to return, to let yourself be mirrored, to let yourself belong. There's a quiet danger that grows in spiritual practice, not from failure, but from progress. You begin to feel more peaceful, more aware, more in control. And slowly, without noticing, a new voice emerges. I'm beyond that now. It doesn't speak loudly, it speaks with calm certainty. It says others are still lost, but I see clearly. This is the beginning of spiritual ego. It wears robes, it speaks softly, it meditates daily. But inside, it separates. It no longer learns, it compares. It no longer listens, it corrects. And here's the paradox. The more refined the practice becomes, the easier it is to hide this ego. It disguises itself as discipline, as detachment, as enlightenment. But the Shaolin path is not performance, it is purification. And true purification humbles you. The deeper you go, the less you cling to status. There was once a practitioner who became proud of his patience, his wisdom, his restraint. He began to correct others, dismiss questions, speak only in riddles. At first, many admired him. But over time, his energy grew cold, unreachable. When he finally faced his teacher again, he was told, "You've built a temple around yourself, but no one can enter." That was the lesson. Spiritual ego doesn't just block growth, it poisons it. It stops the inner journey by convincing you it's already complete. Real mastery doesn't lift you above others. It roots you more deeply in compassion. So when pride starts to whisper, pause, watch it, bow to it, not as truth, but as another obstacle on the path. Because if the door opens while your eyes are fixed on your own reflection, you may never see it at all. Tools are meant to guide you, not hold you. At the beginning of the path, you need structure. You need routine. You rise at the same hour, sit in the same way, breathe to the same rhythm. It builds foundation. It shapes the vessel. But eventually, what was once support can become a cage. If you cannot feel calm without incense, if your peace depends on the right mantra, if the breath only deepens when the room is silent, then the tool has become your master. This is not uncommon. It's easy to confuse ritual with presence, to rely on the form and forget the formless. In the temple, there was once a student whose morning routine was flawless. Meditation, qigong, tea, silence. But when a storm broke his rhythm, he became lost, irritable, restless. He thought he was disciplined, but in truth, he was dependent. Real mastery begins when you can carry stillness into the mess, when peace walks with you through noise, delay, discomfort. Shaolin teachings are clear. Form exists only to dissolve. First, you train the structure, then you must step beyond it. The goal is not to cling to tools, but to become the tool. Breath becomes breath with or without cushion. Movement becomes prayer with or without space. Adaptability is not weakness, it's freedom. When presence no longer relies on perfect conditions, you are no longer spiritual in theory, you are grounded in life. So hold your practices gently. Use them to return, not to escape. Let them shape you but not define you, because true mastery is not built on repetition alone. It's built on the ability to meet the moment exactly as it is. There is no enemy greater than the one you create in your own mind. All the warnings we've spoken about, restlessness, avoidance, pride, repetition, are not punishments. They are gentle signals. They arrive before the fall, before the door closes. The real part begins when you stop looking outward and start returning inward, not with judgment, not with fear, but with quiet responsibility, with humility, with trust. Because the moment you trust your inner compass again, everything begins to shift. The breath slows, the mind clears, and the path becomes visible, even if just one step at a time. So notice the signs, listen to the silence beneath the noise, and most of all, don't wait for collapse to begin your correction. Let your daily life become your training ground. Walk with awareness, speak with intention, practice not to impress but to remember. This is the way of Shaolin Soulfire. If this teaching spoke to you, stay with us. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and carry these lessons into your own life, quietly, steadily, and with great care. Until next time, walk in peace.